Financial Planner. Follow us on YouTube.
And Cabal is scrambling. They are losing control. Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, we've been discussing Obamacare for quite a while, and it looks like Trump is going to be signing the executive order to begin unwinding Obamacare. And this executive order will direct federal agencies to take actions aimed at providing lower cost options and fostering competition in the individual insurance markets. Now, Trump's orders seek to expand the ability of small businesses and other groups to band together to buy health insurance through what are known as association health plans, and also lift limits on short-term health insurance plans. In some ways, the order's impact remains a mystery, as the full extent of the effects will not be immediately clear. Now, the executive order largely does not make changes itself. Rather, it directs agencies to issue new regulations or guidance. Those new rules will go through a notice and comment period that could take months, and we'll have to see what this really does. What I think it's going to do is going to allow these individuals to purchase insurance over state lines. It's going to allow competition, hopefully drive down the cost of insurance, and at the same time, it's going to destroy Obamacare, because this is exactly what is going to happen, because Obamacare is already in a death spiral. And we need to remember something very important here. They keep talking about all the people that are going to lose their insurance. They never talk about the millions of people that couldn't afford the insurance. Now, think about this for a second. 12.7 million taxpayers opted out of Obamacare because it was too expensive. Where did this 12.7 million people come from? It came from the Internal Revenue Service. Remember, you paid a penalty. This is how we know how many people don't have insurance, because it was just completely unaffordable. They couldn't afford it. But we never hear the people in Congress talk about this. All the people, 12.7 million. You know what they say? Well, 20 million are going to be losing their insurance. What about the 12.7 who couldn't afford it? What about those individuals? They forget about those people. And remember, a lot of the 20 million, well, they already had health insurance before. They're not really going to lose it. They're talking about all the subsidized people where they're not really paying for it. The government is paying for it. And we broke apart those numbers once before, and we could see that that number is much, much lower than they even tell us. But they never say, well, you know, if we get rid of Obamacare, maybe these 12 million people will be able to afford insurance. They never talk about that. And once again, if Obamacare is so great, why didn't the entire government sign on to it? Why did they keep their own? Now, we know that Facebook was out there, Google was out there, and they were telling us that, you know, Russia took out these ads. And what we found out is that these ads, these Russian ads, they were purchased by Americans, not Russia. And they were purchased by certain groups. Now, of course, they're just looking at these ads and they're saying that, well, you know, it is all because of Russia, but it really turns out that it wasn't. And a lot of these ads didn't even run. A lot of them ran afterwards. And it looks like every time they try to explain this, and every time they try to use this propaganda, they get themselves into a huge amount of trouble, because the truth always comes out. You can't back up propaganda. It never works, because what happens is when people look at it and they want proof, guess what? That's when it falls apart. We see that North Korea, they already stated that they're never going to give up their nuclear program. And they're saying that they need the nuclear program because it creates and guarantees peace and security in the region. Why do they say this? They're saying this because they saw what happened in Lebanon, Libya, Syria, Iraq, Sudan, Somalia, Ukraine. They got the message. They know if they're not a nuclear state, and no, they're not firing a nuclear missile at the United States or South Korea, it would be absolutely insane for them to do this. Kim Jong-un is not stupid. He's not going to do this and destroy his country. It makes no sense whatsoever. It's not even about destroying the country. The country would be invaded and it would be completely taken over. He knows this. They all know this. They're using this nuclear technology and missile technology to protect themselves from regime change. The only way that we'll get into any type of war is if the Cabal creates some type of false flag. Now, North Korea came out and they recognized Crimea as being part of Russia, which tells me just from that Russia and China, they're fully on board with North Korea developing a nuclear weapon and a missile system. And we can see that they're hoping that they will do this, because once they've done this and completed this, guess what? The Cabal can't do anything at this point in time. And we know that Europe, Tillerson, Russia, China, South Korea, North Korea, behind the scenes, they are in peace talks right now. Now, a couple reports ago, we mentioned how the House leadership, they're going to be attempting to basically revoke the current Resolution 81, which basically means that they would end U.S. involvement in the Saudi war in Yemen. Now, the House unanimously decided to delay the vote on the resolution to November 2nd. Now, the resolution directs the president to end all military participation in the Saudi war in Yemen immediately. Now, once again, the United States never, or Congress never voted for this war. The United States is involved in the war. They're refueling planes for Saudi Arabia. They're supplying equipment. And the United States is involved. Now, a lot of Americans don't realize that this was never authorized, that this was just done under the Obama administration. And Congress now needs to vote to say, you know something? We can't do this anymore. We need to pull everything back. Just like the United States is pulling out of Syria. Yes, the intelligence agencies, the Cabal, they're still trying to push the agenda there, but eventually what's going to happen is we're going to be pulled out of Syria, we're going to be pulled out of Iraq, we're going to be pulled out of many of these countries, because what's happening is there's a slow pivot away from the U.S. to Russia, and Russia is getting involved in all these countries negotiating peace deals. And we're seeing this happen in real time right in front of our face. Erdogan right now is telling the United States, listen, point blank, we don't need you. Now, think about this for a second. There's a lot of countries out there that are no longer dealing in the dollar, so they don't need the dollar, and they're working with China and Russia. And these countries that are working with China and Russia, they are becoming braver and braver, where they're standing up to the United States and saying, listen, you can't push us around anymore. We don't care. We're not, abiding by your sanctions. We're going around it, which means the Cabal is going to be losing a lot of power. Right now, the Cabal is scrambling. They don't know what to do. They're in trouble. The only thing they have left, and we mentioned this before, is to use the nuclear option. And I'm not saying a nuclear war. It might turn into that, but I'm talking about an event of all events to make everyone believe that we need to get into war. It looks like we're heading down this path. Maybe it will happen, maybe it won't. But it looks like they're building the propaganda up right now, because we saw on many of the corporate media stations that they're talking about how North Korea can bring down the power grid. So they're starting the propaganda already to convince us that this is going to happen. They even tried to convince us that Kaspersky Labs, well, they have the ability to go into the financial institutions. They have the ability to go into the power grid. And they're trying to make it seem like that Kaspersky Lab is responsible for hacking into the United States, into many different systems. And they've been calling for all corporations to remove Kaspersky. What really happened was Kaspersky and their virus detection, their malware detection, detected the NSA malware. And it basically showed the world that it was the NSA that embedded malware into many of the systems, and they don't want corporations to understand and know this, or the people around the world to know this, that there's malware in all of these systems, where they can flip a switch, not a physical switch, but they can send a command to these pieces of malware and have them do what they need, whatever they want to be done. So what we're seeing right now is Kaspersky is saying, okay, you're telling us that we're responsible for all this. You're telling us that we're colluding with the Russian government. We're hacking into the American systems. Please show us the proof that we have done this. Present it to the world that we have done this. Now, this is where the United States propaganda is going to fall apart, because they don't have the proof. Now, this is pretty bold on Kaspersky's end, which means they are confident enough to say, we have nothing to do with this. Prove it. If you're going to say it, if you're going to publish it, show us. This is how the propaganda completely implodes on itself. Because the U.S. and the corporate media, they're going to make up some excuse of why they can't present it, most likely national security reasons. So we see already that this story is going to completely fall apart, and there's going to be nothing there. And we're starting to realize that everything the corporate media is saying and what they're doing and everything they're doing is turning out to be a complete and utter lie. Because all we have to do is say, back up your story. If you're going to tell us something, back it up. And they can't. And this is where everything starts to fall apart. Even Trump is out there, and he's telling NBC right now about the nuclear arsenal where he ordered more nuclear weapons. He's saying, I never did this. And he's saying that this is fake news once again. He's calling out all these individuals, saying that they're reporting a lot of fake stuff out there. And the reason why they're reporting this fake stuff, because they're scrambling. Their time is almost at an end. They don't know what to do. So they're just trying to do whatever they possibly can to make it look like they're still in control and disrupt what is going on. Now, once again, their backs are against the wall. They don't know what to do. They can't start a war in Syria. That's coming to an end. All they have left is North Korea. And we see that if they don't do anything very soon, their time is up.